Let's get into this Mike Elias conversation right here. You said, Matt, how about discussing Elias and his failures? Well, today on MLB Network, Tom Verducci and Dan O'Dowd, former general manager in Major League Baseball there, a long time with Cleveland specifically.
Also a friend of the program.
Friend of the show, friend of the program. We interviewed him in Dallas for the winter meetings. But they were talking about this Orioles start here and the roster construction. So let's play that video first. I got it, Zach. That video first on what their assessment is of this ball club.
What's your overall take on the O's?
Yeah, I didn't think they were a great team to begin with. I didn't think they built in depth. I know they've had a ton of injuries, right? But every team goes through injuries. So you have to prepare for that with depth. I didn't think, pitching-wise especially, they had enough to cover any kind of injuries, and it's been worst-case scenario. They're a lot worse than I thought, though. I mean, some of their young players haven't progressed. Adley Rutschman, over the last calendar year, is about a 220 hit and does not look the same.
Where are you, Dan? Because, right, there's a lot with the front office. Again, given their drafting and developing, that it was all there 2 years ago, won 101 games, won the East. Now it's not happening. Why?
Guys, I think there's a huge gap and difference between collecting talent and then figuring out how to win with that talent at the major league level. I've been perplexed on why you wouldn't trade players you don't commit to playing at the big league level. I think losing Santander was the only player for me that was not part of this year's group. Adam knows that culture, environment is very fragile in a big league clubhouse. It doesn't look like there's any leadership now internally on that club. There's a lot to unpack here, BK, and Mike and Sid, who are really brilliant guys. They've got to figure out why the regression is taking place. I mean, I picked them to win because I thought their young core was going to continue to get better, and it's kind of gone completely backwards. And so I'd be very, very concerned right now what's going on in Baltimore in the bigger picture.
There we are. Hey, now, are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
Oh, we're so back. So the comments right there from both Tom and then Dan O'Dowd, where his question was, Tom was the roster construction we've talked about with the pitching side. And look, we knew that was going to be a weakness of the team. So I wanted to clarify that. Like, we knew that going in, it was going to be a weakness, but then you didn't think Grayson was going to go down, Eflin was going to go down, and then you were going to have put pressure on Charlie Morton to try to be your 1 or 2 with Tomoyuki Sagano, who has been good, who has been good for the team. Dan O'Dowd talking about the perplexion of trying to play your prospects. And I think this is the interesting conversation of what are you going to do with those players? What are you going to do with those guys? And I know everyone's saying with the Kyle Stowers thing. And first off, by the way, no one was thinking this way of Kyle Stowers until Kyle Stowers started playing well to start this year. Kyle Stowers got traded and hit 176 last year in 50 games in Miami. Now, I always believed in Stowie's talent. He was my teammate. He could drive the ball to all parts of the field. You're seeing that, right? And this is the nature of the business too. You're going to make a pick on who you want to focus on and give the reps to. Yeah. And they said, all right, we're not going to focus on Kyle Stowers, whether that's right or wrong. They chose that, and they played guys over him. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's the obvious. Joey Ortiz got traded because they said, Jordan Westberg, we're giving your opportunities. Sorry, Joey, we're giving Jordan your opportunities. Okay?
Yeah.
The other guys right now where you're in limbo are the ones like Kobe Mayo and Heston Kjerstad. And, they moved Connor Norby, so they made a choice. But there still is a lot of conversations that you need to figure out because there isn't a spot for even Kobe Mayo, but he's still on your roster. He's big league ready to see if he can be a good big league player or not. We don't know. Heston, injury related, I think we would have had an answer on what he was, but the verdict's still out on what he can be, but he's not getting maybe the consistent run all the time given the state of the team. So there are concerns on that. And one thing I want to say with the whole spending the money and part of it, people can be upset, Zach. Let me back this up. People should not be upset and make claims, well, the Orioles didn't spend money. They did. What you can be upset with is who they spent the money on. Yeah. And I think that's a very different circumstance. If they had spent it on Nick Pivetta, where fans probably would have been, you gave $55 million to Nick Pivetta, which the Padres gave to him. Nick Pivetta's pitching really well for San Diego. They gave it to Charlie Morton. or Tyler O'Neill with the situations, and you didn't sign back a fan favorite Santander who has been struggling. Tomoyuki Sagano has been the only guy that's been healthy or has produced to what you've needed on this roster. So if you have a problem, it's with who was acquired, but not because they didn't spend money. It's just they spent money on the wrong players at this point in time.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the money is they went up, I think it was like $60 million in payroll this year. The money's being spent. It's like you said, it's where is it being spent? It's who's it being spent on, and it's the quality it's being spent on. Are we giving $8.5 million to Gary Sanchez to be your backup catcher, where it's like, okay, not sure the return on investment. Certainly early on, it's not been great. Tyler O'Neill, okay, you give him a $50 million contract. In the long run, over 3 years, maybe he's not the guy you wanted to, with his injury concerns, with his swing and miss ability, maybe not the guy you wanted to spend that kind of money on. Sugano's been great. 41-year-old Harley Morton has not been. It really just feels like it's not the lack of spending that's, upsetting, or, the amount they've spent. It's who they're spending it on, because if they would have gone up $60 million in payroll, but that $60 million was with a Nate Eovaldi, and, maybe you bring back Santander, maybe you go out and get a Teoscar Hernandez, which we were talking about. If you spend $60 million between, like I just said, you get Teoscar, you go out, maybe you get a Crochet, you spend the $30 million on Eovaldi. I don't think there are those complaints. It's that thing where it's, hey, cool, you spent the money, the pockets are open. Why did we not spend it on something better? It's like going to the, saying, hey, we spent $120 this weekend. It's like, yeah, you spent $120 at the dollar store. You could have went out there and gotten something nice, but not all spending money is going to be equal, especially in baseball when you see the returns you've gotten already.
For sure. And that's what it comes down to. It's always you can address it moving back. When you look at the big money being spent, Corbin Burns is going to be fine, but we know that story. He wasn't coming back. Max Fried, 8 years. It's a lot of years to give to a pitcher, and he had his eyes set more on New York than any other place for the contract that he had. But then everyone else was finding the value of who fit. Yeah. And that's the part. It's just that the value of who the Orioles went to spend money on haven't panned out.